So today I'm going to talk about why anger is not bad. So for most of my life, up until a few years ago, I believed that anger was always bad, never ever good. Now a lot of that came from my religious upbringing, which I'll talk about later, was very well-meaning. It just had a little misunderstanding in it. But it doesn't have to be from religious upbringing. It can be cultural, because a lot of girls are taught not to express anger. Boys are often taught not to cry or show weakness in that way. So it can be different gender-wise, but it can affect certainly both men and women, this suppression of anger. So up until a few years ago, even though I had done a lot of work with honoring my emotion, understanding that my emotions were teachers, I still had such a hard time with anger, because every time I experienced anger, I felt immense guilt. And that's actually the mechanism that will suppress anger, the shaming and the guilt. So it wasn't until I read a book about the dynamics of abuse that talked about how there's all kinds of people who are abused, but one common factor is that they are people who suppress their anger. Because what happens is when someone does something harmful or unjust to them, rather than listening to their anger and acting from, wait a minute, this isn't okay, they instead feel guilty for even feeling the anger and think that it's their fault. That's exactly what happened to me in my 10-year marriage of abuse. And that's why I had one big reason why I had such a hard time leaving or saying this isn't okay. So the problem with suppression of any kind of emotion is that we do not get the wisdom that it's there to teach us. Now, emotion is energy in motion. It is literally physical energy in our bodies. So what happens is we have a thought or something happens, and then our bodies respond by producing chemicals and hormones, right? So anger is part of the fight or flight response. It's fight, right? So we have the anger, and it gives us adrenaline, and the blood rushes to our muscles, and we're ready to fight something that's not okay, that's something that's harmful. Now, often we're not in a life or death situation, right? And so the misunderstanding, I think, is this. I did this, I think a lot of people do this, is the equate anger with acting out. Because rightfully so, it's often so tight together, right? That we feel the anger and we act out. But, like Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is your power. And so when we learn to pause and to fully feel our emotion, I love what this children's book said. It said, feel your feelings and choose your actions. So fully feel the anger, the sadness, the fear, because it is there to tell you something. And if you suppress it, you will not get that message. So you want that message. It is super healthy to have that message and to fully feel the emotion so that it doesn't get stuck in your body. There are 3 ways that we actually don't feel our emotion. One is that we escape, and that's addiction. You know, we might go shopping or scrolling on social media or drinking or whatever, just because it's so uncomfortable to feel our emotion. So escape is one. The second one is the suppression. We just shame ourselves or just push it down. Don't even deal with it. And that ends up manifesting. Contrary to popular belief, it does not go away when we do that. It actually just suppresses in our bodies and manifests as anxiety, depression, and physical symptoms. So it doesn't go away. The third way, though, that we get rid of our anger is by pushing it out. So we either run away from it, push it down or back, or we push it out. And when we push it out, that's when we're acting out. That's actually another way to not be with our anger and not fully feel it. We just blame, put it out on someone else. our boundaries have been crossed, so now we're going to cross someone else's boundaries, and we just multiply the problem. And so a lot of religious teachings and cultural teachings want to protect us from that problem. They want to protect us from the acting out that then intensifies the problem. But in so doing, what people often internalize is that it's shameful to actually feel the feeling. But there's actually a brilliant verse in Psalms that says, when you're angry, go to your room or to your bed and search your heart. So the healthy thing to do when you feel angry, unless you're in a life or death situation and that energy needs to be exerted, is to put a little pause. And this is easier said than done. When I started to do this, the pause between my anger and my response was just one breath. For one breath, I sat with the anger. I felt it in my body. I felt it in my stomach, in my clenched hands, in my locked jaw. I felt the adrenaline in my body, and I was just with it, and I just watched it, and I didn't act out in it. I just held it. And so you let that emotional, physical response rise up. It's a wave. It rises up in your body and then is released. It takes 90 seconds for it to release. And then you ask yourself, what are you here to teach me? Or you ask the emotion, what are you here to teach me? What information do I need to get from you? Because if you don't get the information, you may end up in a 10-year abusive marriage, or you may end up suppressing the emotion and it manifests physically. So honoring the emotion means sitting with it, feeling it in your body, and observing it with compassion and curiosity. And when you get curious about it, then you can learn the wisdom that it has to teach you. So feel your anger and then choose your action.